What if I told you that this season's Ferrari has an error that not even the team computers can detect in real time? And what was Lewis Hamilton, in his second Grand Prix, who discovered this invisible failure and devastating? In Baku, during the free sessions, Lewis did several intentional tests to measure the behavior of the car in specific conditions. He repeated exact paths, measured times in curve outputs, and above all, paid attention to acceleration in long lines. There he noticed the first clear indication. The car not only lost speed, lost energy, but it was not a linear loss. It was intermittent, as if someone turned off and lit a switch into the propulsion system. And the strangest thing, that loss did not generate any alarm in the car systems. There were no alerts, no mistakes or warnings. Meanwhile, Ferrari engineers were still looking for it in the wrong places. They thought of suspension configurations, engine mapping settings, or even the pilot's psychology. Baku was the drop that filled the glass. On a track that demands pure power and mechanical stability, the SF-25 became a shadow. Lewis was advanced without being able to defend himself. It didn't matter if he took the rebuild, if he changed the motor modes, he adjusted the braking cast. The car simply did not deliver the power it promised. There were no piloting errors. There were no strategy failures. Only helplessness. An impotence that was accompanied by the certainty that something much deeper was wrong. What began as an intuition of a pilot soon became a technical finding of catastrophic proportions. The moment Hamilton and his engineer reviewed the telemetry after Baku, everything fit. And what they found not only confirmed their suspicions, he multiplied them. The Ferrari SF-25 suffered an intermittent power loss exactly at the time where it was most needed, when leaving slow curves towards long lines at maximum acceleration points, just when the hybrid system should deliver its full energy contribution. The problem of the problem was in the MGUK unit, the component of the ERS system in charge of recovering and delivering kinetic energy. Unlike an obvious mechanical failure, this problem was subtle. The power did not disappear suddenly. Instead, the hybrid system seemed to enter a state of silent degradation. Every time the car demanded a complete release of accumulated electricity, the MGUK responded with less than expected. There were number 160 horses of hybrid power, as stipulated in the regulation. There were 150, sometimes 140, and even in critical moments, less than 130. And that loss of between 10 and 30 horses made all the difference in classification, in defense, in attack. In the current Formula One, that is equivalent to losing several positions per return. The severity of the matter intensified when understanding how this loss went completely unnoticed by the car diagnostic system. There were no failure records. No witness was lit. No alert system jumped in the pilot's dashboards or on the engineer's screens. The system simply delivered less without noticing it, as if the car was working in safe mode, but without knowing it. The problem became even more complex because Ferrari's software was not programmed to detect these microstates. It was designed to find binary errors, total ruptures, critical falls. But this fault was intermittent, random, without specific pattern. It happened a few laps, yes, not others. In some sectors of the circuit, it disappeared. In others, it became evident. It was a technical ghost. Baku, with his gigantic 2 kilometers, exhibited SF-25 in the worst possible way. Hamilton was completely helpless in front of rivals with more stable cars. I was trying to open DRS, looking for rebuffo, take advantage of each tenth, but the car did not respond. The thermal engine roaring, but the hybrid system failed without saying anything. The result, loss of traction, impossibility of advancing, and brutal wear in the pilot's confidence. This situation led to a complete review of the ERS system after the race. Ferrari disassembled the MGUK, analyzed electrical investors, torque controllers, distribution modules, and there they found the core of the problem. A thermal anomaly that affected the generator's performance under specific conditions of temperature and pressure. Under certain circumstances, accumulated heat generated a loss of efficiency in electric delivery, reducing system output by up to 15%. This degradation was not visible to the software because it did not generate an error. The system was still working within the tolerance margins, but less and less efficiently. The most worrying thing is that this fault was not new. He had been present from the preseason tests. But as it affected subtle, it had been attributed to the learning curve of Hamilton or small style differences between him and Leclerc. For weeks, the problem was invisible, disguised as adaptation, covered by the mist, the partial analysis. It was Hamilton, with his experience, his insistence and precision, who brought the truth to light. From that moment on, the team understood that they were not dealing with a slow pilot, but with a sick car. And it was not just any failure. It was a deadly combination of non-diagnostic electrical failure added to a sensor system that was not calibrated for such anomalies. The Scuderia entered into crisis mode, because such a failure is not corrected in a week. It requires redesign components, recalibrate software, review the diagnostic protocols. And all this while the championship is still underway. Meanwhile, Hamilton had not only discovered the error, he had also demonstrated why he is still one of the most complete pilots in history. Because it is not just a fast driving, but about understanding the car, identifying invisible failures, and having the courage to face the technical system of a team like Ferrari and say, here is something that is not right. What they discovered about the hybrid system was just the beginning. Ferrari had built a car that not only failed electronically, but was also full of fundamental mechanical deficiencies. As if the very structure of the SF-25 was conceived from the beginning with defects that camouflaged between optimistic simulations and poorly calibrated wind tunnels. What Hamilton and his team found was a much larger technical iceberg which went beyond electronics. It was a structural failure of concept. Baku, with its bachelor areas and its surface changes, amplified this defect. Every time Hamilton faced a low-speed curve followed by a line, the car reacted late, as if the chassis needed time to recover its balance. But in Formula One, even half a second of instability can be lethal. And so it was the second great monster stalked at the front of the car, the braking system. Here too, Hamilton was key. From a first free in Australia, he had already commented that the feeling of braking was irregular, inaccurate. After several analysis sessions, it was identified that the problem was not the brake disc itself, but the cooling ducts. The design of the SF-25 did not provide a constant and efficient air flow towards the front brakes, which caused chronic overheating every time the pilot demanded maximum performance in strong braking. When the front discs reached too high temperatures, the pedal lost firmness, the braking point moved, and the detention distance increased. For a pilot like Hamilton, who bases his style on millimeter precision in braking areas, this represented a direct threat. The temporal solution was to apply the lift and coast strategy. Lift the foot of the accelerator before reaching the braking. Allow the car to slowly slow down, and thus reduce the brake temperature. But this defensive strategy penalizes in a career rhythm, destroys overtaking opportunities, and converts each battle into a survival game. Both problems, rear suspension and refrigeration of brakes, combined with an even more difficult factor to diagnose, the bad correlation between the wind tunnel and the real track. The aerodynamic data obtained in simulation did not match the behavior of the car in the race. This means that engineers adjusted the wing, the rake, the flow channels according to an aerodynamic model that did not reflect reality. And as a consequence, the car arrived badly prepared to each circuit. I was never in the optimal aerodynamic load window. Too much drag in line, insufficient downforce in fast curves. A chronic imbalance that affected each sector, each stint, every weekend. For Ferrari, this was a devastating blow, because it was no longer just improve the component. It was necessary to rethink the car from its architecture. Check the simulation model, redesign the rear suspension, modify the cooling ducts, recalibrate the correlation between CFD data and data on the track. A transformation that is not achieved in a week. It requires months. And meanwhile, the season advances, the points escape, and the pressure increases. Hamilton, meanwhile, understood that he was running with a deeply limited car. But he also knew that its value was not measured only in fast laps, but in its ability to detect, diagnose, and communicate these problems. He became not only a pilot, but a human sensor, a real, time developer on the bridge between the track and the factory. What is at stake goes beyond this season. What is defined in these weeks is the immediate future of the Scuderia and the definitive closure of the career of one of the greatest pilots that this sport has seen. Ferrari must respond with actions, and you must do it quickly. There is no more margin for eternal diagnoses or progressive adjustments. Formula One is brutal, and time devours those who doubt. The big question is if they can reverse this situation before it is too late. If you can transform an unstable car into a victory tool. And if they will be able to correspond to the ambition of a pilot who has put his prestige at the service of a project that, for now, has disappointed more than excited. Do you think Hamilton can reverse the fate of the SF-25? Or are we seeing the beginning of the end of your last great adventure in Formula One? Can Ferrari, with all its resources, talent, and pressure, turn around a situation that already threatens to escape from their hands? Leave it to the comments you think, and if you are not subscribed, you would help you a lot to grow this community.